Okay, so this is going to be a two-part video just because it's going to take a while to explain this, so just keep that in mind when you're going through it, that you might have to watch the other half. So anyway, we're going to start off with some factoring here. This is a factoring algebraic expression. This is the example problems. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit here and take my time and show you some problems. But the first thing we got to look for when we're factoring, like I said in my lecture notes, is make sure that you are in standard form. Standard form, as a quick review, is that ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, once you make sure that you have it in standard form and everything on this worksheet is, you want to make sure that you, if you have any greatest common factors, you can factor them out. The state of Pennsylvania states that your a term has to be positive 1. If it's not positive 1, it's going to have a common factor. This number 2, this first example I'm doing with you, does have a positive 1. So this is an example of it all ready to go, no common factor to worry about. This is not number 3, so we'll get to number 3 in a second. But that's what I'm talking about. So when the coefficient in front of the variable being squared, so the a term, that's what we call the a term. If that's not 1, look for a common factor. And a common factor is just a number that you can divide everything by. So technically this has a common factor of 1, but it's not going to help us do anything. So that's why I say it doesn't really have a greatest common factor. Technically it does, but really it's 1. So let's say a greatest common factor other than 1, so to satisfy all the mathematicians out there that'll get mad at my videos. But anyway, the name of the game when you're factoring a polynomial like this is you're looking at the c term. Our c term is 10. Our b term is negative 7. And as I said before, our a term is positive 1. You don't need to list it. I'm just identifying that way when I'm going through the problem, you understand what I'm talking about. So we're going to start with the c term. We want all the factors of the c term. Factors are numbers that you can multiply together to get the number you're after. So always start with 1 and the number that you're working with. The next set of factors we would have would be 2 and 5. And then you would check 3 and you would get a decimal, 4 would get you a decimal, and 5 and 2. Once you see the factors repeat like that, as long as you're going in order in your calculator, you're done. So once they repeat, once they switch spots like that, you've got all the factors that you need, and you should have something that works. If you don't, then you have something that can't be factored. So our b term in this is 7. So we're looking for, out of these factors, either this set or this set, which one's going to make a 7? Well, when I combine them, and notice I use the word combine because sometimes you're adding, sometimes you're subtracting, but you're doing combining like terms. So 1 and 10 would either form a 9 or an 11 or a 7 and a 3. So I know the factors of 2 and 5 are going to work because that's what our b term is. We want to make a 7. So I'm going to set up 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to put the letter that I'm working with in each one. This one's going to get a 2, this one's going to get 5. It doesn't matter where the numbers go, but it does make a difference where the sign goes. So in this case, they both need to be negative, because when you do the factoring, there's always 2 conditions that need to be met. They need to multiply together to get your c term, and they need to combine together to make the b term. So negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. Negative 2 minus 5 gives you negative 7. What you're doing, basically, is you're doing foiling, but you're doing it really fast, or distribution. So n times n is n squared. N times negative 5 is negative 5n. Negative 2 times n is negative 2n. And negative 2 times 5 is positive 10. So when I do the combining like terms, I get exactly what I started with. So I know that this is factored correctly. Okay? Let's jump down to number 3. Number 3 has a common factor. Number 3 has a common factor of 2 because in Algebra 1, just to get you started, they make it easier and make sure that you can factor your a term out. In Algebra 2, they're going to switch gears on you and make it where you have to do other things. But this is just kind of an introduction to the topic, so they do try to make it easy for you. So we're going to factor out a 2. Factoring is just a big, scary sounding word for dividing. So I'm going to divide each of these terms by 2. So this is going to give me m squared. This is going to give me 16m, and this is going to give me 60. So once the common factor has been factored out, this, for all intents and purposes, becomes your c term. So I'm going to look at the factors of 60 now. That's my c term. My c term 60, and my b term, I'm looking at 16. Okay, sorry, I'm getting my hands in the way. I'm looking at 16. I don't care about this anymore. This has been factored out. That's been divided. So this is my acting b term, if you want to think of it that way. Okay, so 16. So I got 1 and 60, that would make 61 or 49, or 59, I'm sorry. 2 and 30 would make either 28 or 32. 3 and 20 would make 17 or 23. 4 and 15. Again, use a calculator. If you're not the greatest at your multiplication tables and doing this, use a calculator. Just divide stuff. It'll eventually work. 5 and 12. You need 7 and 17. 6 and 10 will give you 4 and 10. 4 and 16. Sorry, it's been a long day, guys. My bad. 7 doesn't work. 8 doesn't work. 9 doesn't work. And 10 and 6. So they're repeated on you, so you know those are all the possible factors that you have. So you're looking for 16. So I know 10 and 6 is my jackpot. Now, when you're doing this, and I'm going to show you an example in the second video where you're going to have two sets of factors that'll still form the B term. So just because you find one that worked doesn't mean you should stop. You should really consider everything. All right, let's keep going here. I put two open sets of parentheses. I'm going to put an M in the first and an M in the next, and a 6 and a 10. So they both need to be positive. They both need to be positive because, again, they got to multiply to form C, combine to make B. So 6 times 10 gives me 60. Positive 6 plus positive 10 gives me 16. So I know that this is factored correctly. I'm going to do one more problem, then I'm going to have to switch and make the second video. So here's your next problem. So again, A term's 1. I don't have a common factor other than 1. So I'm going to start with my 72. At 1 and 72. That's going to form a 71 or a 73. 2 and 36. So 34. 38. 3 and what is that going to be? 24. Sorry, I'm tired. So use a calculator if you have to. 4 and 18 would be 14 and 22. 5 doesn't work. 6 and 12. That's going to make either a 6 or an 18. 7 doesn't work. 8 and 9 would form either a 1 or a 17, and 9 and 8. So there you've repeated. So there's your one you're after, is the 8 and the 9. My goal is that hopefully, once you get the hang of this, you might be able to do some of you might be able to do this in your head, and that's fine. Like I said, though, you got to be careful because there's ones out there where you could have two potential ones that are going to work. So two sets of parentheses, X in each one. I'm going to put an 8 here and a 9 there. So again, 8 times 9 to make a negative 72. One of them is going to have to be negative and one of them is going to have to be positive. Because just like they taught you in elementary school or middle school, negative times a positive is a negative. So you've got to determine which one's going to get the positive, which one's going to get the negative. Well, it all boils down to the B term because it does make a difference. And let me show you what happens if you mess it up. I'm going to do it wrong on purpose. I'm going to call that negative and that positive. So a lot of people would say, well, negative 8 times positive 9 makes negative 72, so I'm done. But look what happens when you do the combining part. Negative 8 plus 9 would give you positive 1. So I know that this is wrong. So as I was saying before, you want to look at that B term, figure out the sign of the B term, and in a problem like this, the bigger number between 8 and 9, the bigger number has to match that sign. So I know that that has to be negative. So this is factored completely, and we're good. All right, I'm going to pause this and start the second video here in a second.